Welcome to Dads and Daughters, episode number 11 with my co-pilots here, Kelly and Jenna. And just so I have a special episode coming for you guys tonight. Back in my football days, years and years ago, I had my own issues with addiction, a very painful topic for all of us. Mine was with painkiller addiction, hydrocodone, oxycodone, and that's an issue that's been very prevalent amongst our whole society. And we have some very special guests on tonight to talk about that. We also have a special friend of, I think, Ray Negron, you're backstage, and Steve Vaccaro, but CC Sabathia, a former Yankee pitcher, has a great documentary coming out on HBO Tuesday night, 9 p.m. It's called Under the Grapefruit Tree, the CC Sabathia Story. And CC had his own issues with alcohol addiction back about 5-6 years ago. And many people know about that, and this documentary can be focused on that. And we have some other great stories to come at you as well. But I want to see if we can play a clip that Ray Negron did with CC Sabathia a couple of years ago, talking a little bit about his work in the community and why he's such a special guy.
Do you feel the aspect of how you've helped some of these kids grow up? Because a lot of these kids you first started helping at 8, 10, 12, 15 years old are now 25 and 30. I mean, what's your feeling about that?
Yeah, it's amazing, especially when I get a chance to see, some of the scholarships that we give out and see those kids graduate college and come back and help my community in Vallejo and different things that help, the community in the Bronx, the Boys and Girls Club. It's a great thing, and it's just a way to leave my legacy and to leave my name.
Everywhere I go throughout the Bronx, Brooklyn, wherever, first question out of these kids' mouth, do you know CC Sabathia? You know what I'm saying? And I'm proud to be able to say, I know you. And I just want to say to the people here in Long Island, I thank you for your kindness, your generosity, and always treating me, a regular kid from these streets, with class and dignity. You never big leagued me, and I thank you.
No, I have to say thank you to you too. I mean, obviously, meeting you at 19 years old and the impact you and Doc had on my life when in those Indian years, I'll never forget. So I have to say thank you to you too.
Thank you. It's a great honor and a great compliment. Thanks brother.
Oh, so many awesome guests we have on tonight. The first two I want to introduce Ray Negron, been with the Yankees for 47 years. He's been a regular on our show. And our producer, Steve Vaccaro, who's actually going to come from behind the curtain to on the show as well. Steve is also an addiction counselor, has a lot of experience with this topic. So if they're back there hiding, there they are.
Hello, Michael. It's good to see you.
Steve's in a rough mood because the Vikings lost today, so we're not going to get into that, Steve. We're going to move on to better topics. But our first guest is a very special friend. Ray's had a relationship with this gentleman for 35 something years.
Don't remind me about that. Jesus, I still got the twitches.
You're a young man, but I've been pleasure to know Dwight Doc Gooden for over 10 years. He's been regular at all, one of the most giving guys I've ever met. He's got a special story, and there's Doc, and a great special guy. Doc was the 1984 Rookie of the Year, 3-time World Series champ, 1985 Cy Young Award winner. He went 24-4, had a great no-hitter moment with the Yankees in 96. A real story of redemption. So maybe we can play a clip of Doc from shows ESPN 30 on 30 a couple of years ago. Did the Doc Gooden, Darryl Strawberry tale, and then we'll have Doc pop on.
Told me he first got involved with drugs after the 1985 season. He was the Cy Young winner, the world at his feet, 20 years old. Dwight was the kind of guy who never wanted to turn his back on his friends back in Tampa, never wanted to big league people, as they say. And he said he was introduced to it when he was invited to go to back bedrooms at these parties where they were doing cocaine. And just to mingle, to mix, to be one of the guys, to show them that he wasn't any different than the rest.
There's Doc. You're looking great, Doc. And Doc's in Maryland with his kids. And you have great shirt there.
I love that shirt, Doctor.
Sir, what's up, guys?
Hey, let me just say, they don't come better than Dwight Gooden. That's all I got to say on Dwight Gooden. They do not come better, even though he's giving me the twitches. They don't come better. He is the greatest. He's beautiful, and I love him forever.
Oh, you man. Thanks, Ray, for the kind words, man. I feel the same towards you. And that picture, Mike, you could have got a better picture than. I'm a better looking guy than a picture.
Much better. He don't like you, Doc.
We got a picture of there. That's a better picture. We also got one with Peter Manning, I think, that you guys can put up there. There we go.
Steinbrenner or something. I don't know.
Doc, you look much better now. Much better.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate
I mean,
that.
if I was a woman, I would kiss you in the lips.
Oh man, we talked about that. You know, talking about women.
Wow.
We just talked about that about women.
See, within the first 30 seconds,
Sorry.
you're talking about different
Sorry.
things already with this guy.
He's amazing.
Sorry.
It's amazing. But I got to say something. First, I got to compliment Mike and Kelly and his other daughter for doing such a wonderful job week after week. You really take
Incredible.
it home and you're bringing issues out that have to be discussed. And Kelly, you are a role model with what you're doing for this show. So God bless you, Kelly, and your sister. Thank you so very much.
Good job, guys.
Yeah, it's a proud moment. And Mike, to pull this kind of show together is so important because both you, Ray, Doc, and Grant Fuhrer, who's going to be on the show, are in the sports world. But they all use the sports world to kind of platform to help others. And Ray, would you say that's what you do from day in and day out, right?
Listen, people don't understand that the one thing that I will say, I'm still in baseball today. I mean, I went to the next level because of Dwight Gooden, okay? I mean, it is what it is. But he was there, and his misfortune was my fortune because I was able to show George Steinbrenner that, look, I can help this guy. And you know what? Dwight was the guy that, and as he let me help him. Because he didn't have to. You know that as a counselor. And he let me help him. Hey, it wasn't easy. You know what I'm saying? But he made sacrifices, and he made sacrifices for me as I was making sacrifices for him. And I am eternally grateful to you, Dwight. Believe me.
Man. Thank you, Ray, for the kind words. And like you said, I couldn't have made. I always tell people in 1995, I probably wouldn't be here. Well, I'm sure I wouldn't be here today. And I mean, living when I say that, if it wasn't for Ray Negron. And I mean that. You mean a lot to me. Like you said, me being grateful to you, I think it was the other way around. And I listened to the clip by CeCe. You said he didn't have to thank you, just a little guy, normal guy from the Bronx. You're not a normal guy, not in my books anyway. You're a hell of a human being. I know you don't like taking credit for anything, but I mean, for me, my family, my kids, you basically saved my life. And what I mean by that, guys, in 1995, I was at the bottom. I mean, I hadn't given up on everything, and I was so sick where my disease of drugs, alcohol, was basically telling me that I didn't have a disease. I was in total denial. I met Ray through Bob Clappish, and I still was trying to play baseball through all my sickness. I had to put a gun to my head. I was suspended from baseball for a year, and I still was trying to get to Japan, and that's how I came to Coach Ray, and to tell you how the good Lord works. I wasn't even aware that Ray only lived a mile away from me in St. Petersburg, Florida. Met Ray through Bob Clappish, trying to go to Japan to play baseball, and thank God Ray told me, he said, you get in shape and get ready, I can get you to Japan. And so my whole goal was to get in shape and get ready to go to Japan. But you know what? Every day, as Ray said, it wasn't easy. I know I wasn't easy to get along at that time because I was still very sick in my disease. But one thing, Ray didn't give up on me. Even though I had to give up on myself, Ray did not give up on me. And Ray, I thank you for that. And I get chills, every time I think about that because I knew where I was at the time. And now I get to relive that moment where I was at that time in my life, in a very dark place. And so Ray, every day, and Ray, like I said, I didn't have to, you didn't have to. Every day, Ray would come to my house, pick me up, you have his juice and whatever. We'll go to college, work out every day. After we work out, and it's like 8 a.m. After we work out, I come home, I shower, go to an NA meeting. After the meeting, we go to lunch. After lunch, I get to go home. That was every day for a year. For a year, this man sacrificed his life for me. Why? I have no idea. I just shows you the type of heart that Ray has with people. He wants to help people. And the thing about it, once I started getting better, feeling better about myself, getting my dignity back, at that time, I remember telling Ray, I don't know if you remember, I said, look, I don't want to go to Japan. I want to go back to the Major League Baseball, but first of all, I get my life together, keep growing as a person and growing my recovery. And the funny thing Ray said, he goes, good, because I wasn't sending you to Japan anyway.
Ray is one of the helpers, and I think that's one thing about Ray is to find him over 47 years. He is a helper, and like Chaz Palminteri said in the Bronx Tale, there's the givers and the takers. Ray is a giver and what he's done with you, Doc, and Darryl Strawberry, and so many other people over the years.
Oh, so many, yes.
Joy Steinbrenner had, and I know Joy Steinbrenner also, Doc, gave you a lot of chances for redemption as well. He's a special man in your life, and we all love the boss and miss him dearly. And I think he was another helper for you as well, the boss.
Oh, big time. And again, Ray brought me to George. I had met Mr. Steinbrenner several times, crossing paths on the plane, but I never got to meet him and sit down and talk. And again, that was only because of Ray. Once Ray felt that I was in a position that I was ready and my suspension was up with Major League Baseball, he set up a meeting with Mr. Steinbrenner at a restaurant called Alvaroni's, one of George's favorite places to go. And I remember that day, Ray had told me, he goes, make sure you wear a nice suit, nice haircut, nice shave. You got to look good for the boss. You only got one time to make a first impression. That's what Ray told me. And my whole thing was, I feel good. I'm going in to impress the boss and try to get a contract with the Yankees, because at that time, the Mets wanted to cut ties, which I completely understood. And I remember going in, buying a new suit, making sure I had a nice shave, a nice haircut, take Ray up from his house. We both had on nice suits. We went into Tampa to meet with the boss. We walk into the restaurant, and there's Mr. Steinbrenner sitting there with a nice Adidas sweatsuit on. Him and Billy Connor. So I kind of look at Ray. I'm like, okay. Because, Ray's a good man. He means well, but Ray likes to, he likes to kid around sometimes. So I'm like, okay.
He does? I didn't know that.
I never knew that.
Yeah, the thing is, we sit there.
Who knew?
We have dinner, nice dinner, and we talked for probably 2 hours. And Mr. Steinbrenner never talked about baseball. He never brought up about playing with the Yankees, signing a contract, and none of that. He just wanted to know how I'm doing, what have I been doing this past year, how's my kids, what am I looking forward to doing with the rest of my life. Never brought up baseball. And me, I'm anxious, a lot of anxiety, ready to talk baseball, ready to talk Yankees, and he never brought it up. So on the ride home, me and Ray, I'm just all in around, like, man, this was bullshit. And I don't know if it's on the show, but I said, this is bullshit. The boss never wanted me, just wanted to meet me, just have
He
dinner.
hammered me. He hammered me.
I said, Lord, you just made this all up. It's all about you. The next day, Ray made me eat my words. He called me. He goes, the boss want to meet you at the ballpark. He wants to talk a country. And I said, wow. I had to eat my words. And we brought my father along to do the contract. And it just turned out to be a great day. And Mr. Steinbrenner, what a tremendous guy. I mean, everybody knows him as a tough guy, wants to win and all that. But I got to know the real man. I got to see the sensitive side, how he really cares about people, how much he does for people, and he don't want anybody to know he does it from the heart. And I remember one time he told me, he goes, when you're doing something from your heart, it only should be between you and whoever you're doing it from. You don't need the cameras or what have you, or any of that stuff. But just a tremendous, tremendous guy, and he was great for my father all the way to the end.
But we all know May 14th, Doc, is I call it Dwight Gooden Day, is May 14th in my household, because that day you were going through a lot with your father, being ill and everything, and eventually passing, and you had the best day of your probably baseball career on May 14, 1996. Yes. Ultimate redemption. I think we have a clip of that as well. That was an amazing day. So let's see if we have that one.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Lifted in the air, in the infield. Derek Jeter waiting, makes the catch. A no-hitter for Dwight Gooden.
He did it! He did it! He did it! Oh, sorry. I went back. Sorry.
Dwight, can you take him with you for a couple of hours?
Yeah, you may need to.
You've been listening so much. I'd love to have Ray with me right now. If he was here, I'll give him a big hug and a nice kiss right on his lips.
Whoa! So Dwight, take us for the fans out there. I know you've been asked this question a lot of times. Take us through your mind after that last pitch and DJ brought it down.
Oh man, I tell you, that day, after the last pitch when the ball went in the air, there was a hanging curveball to Paul Sorrento. I was tired. I probably should have been on that game a couple minutes before, but once you get that close, you have to go for it. And the ball in the air, obviously you want Jeter to catch it because nothing against Wade Boggs, but he has problems with Papa. So when Jeter caught that ball, and this is God honest truth, when the guys would carry me off the field, all I could think about when I had my hands raised, doing it in Yankee Stadium with all the history that's taken place at that ballpark. I was out of baseball the previous year. I remember having a gun to my head the previous year. I remember meeting Ray, and he basically saved my life. All these things are going through my head at that time. I wonder if my dad's going to make it. I remember starting off 0-3 that season and basically being benched. When a pitcher's benched, that means you don't get in the game if you're up 10-0 or you're down 10-0. Joe Torre basically benched me, and I mean, I was getting ready to get released. I signed down to the minor leagues, but unfortunately, David Cone got the aneurysm, and that gave me an opportunity to get back into the rotation. All these different things were wearing through your mind as you're being carried off the field through that time as I'm pumping my arms. I mean, if you'd have told me a year prior to that was going to take place, I would have thought you was crazy. Not only that taking place, put the no-hitter at Yankee Stadium, but just putting on a uniform, putting on a Yankee uniform and playing at Yankee Stadium. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, for the stuff that happens, it's very powerful. And I'm getting chills now trying to tell this story and relive it and have him right here. I mean, just unbelievable that I got the opportunity to play with the Yankees and the way everything turned out. And everything was meant to be, because you'd have thought if I was going to throw a no-hitter, it would have happened probably in 85 with the Mets, 84 with the Mets. It was meant to happen in 96 with the Yankees, May 14th. And it turned out to be the last game my dad saw me pitch. Yeah. My dad was going to dialysis for 15 years. His heart was failed to him. He had to have emergency heart surgery. And I was supposed to fly home that day to go with my father, because the doctor said if he had the heart surgery because of his conditions, he probably won't make it. But if he don't have the surgery, he's definitely not going to make it. And that morning, I just thought he probably wanted me to pitch, and not knowing how that day was going to turn out. And I remember going home the next morning, going into the hospital, give my dad that ball. You know, he couldn't really talk. He was on the ventilator, you know, on the life support system. He had the surgery, but the doctors told me the night before he saw the game and he had a tear in his eye. But the thing about it, the last game he got so many pitch was that no-hitter. And Yankee.
Wow. And what was incredible, Michael, Dwight left that following morning to fly back to get to Tampa to go to the hospital, racing the clock. And as he walked into the hospital, George Steinbrenner is sitting right there like a little kid waiting for Doc.
Yes.
Remember that, yes. Doc?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, you don't see that. I mean, things he don't have to do, but he remembered meeting my dad at the when I signed the contract, and he knew what was going on. Ray had talked to him, my dad's situation. And when I got there, Mr. Steinbrenner was sitting right there in the hospital in the lobby. I mean, I couldn't believe it. Could not believe it. And wow. You know, he definitely, and I'm not just blowing smoke or saying this, I still believe Mr. Steinbrenner gave my dad an extra couple of days when he came in that room, just me, my dad, and Mr. Steinbrenner. And Mr. Steinbrenner was talking to him regularly. And, you know, to do that, I mean, you talk about Mr. Steinbrenner, one of the greatest ever. And I mean, greatest persons when I say that. To spend time with my dad and share that moment, I'll never forget it from Mr. Steinbrenner and the Steinbrenner family.
Well, Dwight, thanks for being so candid. Mike, you pulled these amazing guests together. What's the focus that you want to cover tonight and to really get a message out there? Because the lineup that we have tonight is simply amazing, but they've all battled in their different ways like we all have. What's your thought about tonight's show, Mike?
Well, we have obviously some like Doc and Grant Fuhrer is going to be on next, and Jeff Judith and Ricky Burke will have their amazing stories of addiction recovery. You also have parents. So, you know, we have Sweeter, we have Tony LaGreca, and we have some others to fall in that category. We're not sure if Jimmy Wahlberg is able to join us tonight, but he falls in a hybrid category of being an addict himself and a parent of a son who had addiction issues as well. So I think hearing different perspectives, I think, is really key to this topic, because you can't just look at it from one lens. So hopefully the guests that I think we have. So Doc, I just want to thank you for sharing your story.
But Michael, before you let Doc go, it's very important that I want the people to understand, because, hey, 47 years and the strongest relationship from the standpoint like this that I ever saw the boss have was with Dwight Gooden. And no, it wasn't Darryl. He had a nice relationship with Darryl, with Jeter, with all these guys. But from the standpoint of a heart and soul and what they had gone through. Hey, Dwight Gooden's last year was 2000. He gets released by the Tampa Bay Rays. Okay? So now Doc is like literally thinking, what happens here? do I end up like this? And so what happened was, I got nervous as a guy who's not a counselor per se. I got nervous for my friend, and I called up the boss, and I asked him. I said, "Boss, Dwight, can we do something for him?" And you know what? He was already told by other baseball people that he was done. But George Steinbrenner, being George Steinbrenner, said, "You know what? I'm going to sign him and I'm going to put him in our rookie league." He started in the rookie league again in 2000, and then in 2 weeks there was a bunch of injuries, and we needed a pitcher in New York for a day-night doubleheader, a game at Shea Stadium and then a game at Yankee Stadium. So they decided politically, let's give Gooden the Shea Stadium game. It'll be his swan song. That's what was said. And I never said anything to Dwight about this. It was him, Billy Connors, and me. We flew to New York to pitch this game. And so and me being a gambler, I was hoping that he would have one game where he would show them that, hey, I still got it. So Dwight went to warm up in the bullpen, okay? I'm sitting in the stands, and all of a sudden, as Dwight is walking back from the bullpen after warming up, Frank Sinatra's song comes on, Summer Wind. And so I look at Dwight as Sinatra singing Summer Wind. If you know what that song really means, you would understand why I started crying. Because I went up or thumbs down. And Dwight goes, like he ain't got it. And I go, oh no, God. Oh. I broke down in the stands. But what happened? Dwight went in and put that ball up the Mets' ass. Yep. And he ended up spending the whole season and became a world champion again, thanks to the heart and soul of George Steinbrenner and to the cojones that Dwight Gooden had to be able to do that.
3 times World Series champ. That was great.
Oh, man. That's right. And I remember that. You're right.
And then he would become, the following season, he was the special assistant, the first one of that position. That now he got 15 of them for every team. He was the first, what do you call it? The special assistant to the owner. And he was flying everywhere in his private jet with George Steinbrenner and Doc Gooden.
Yep, that's good.
And all the jealousy was all over the place.
Oh, it was unbelievable.
So Michael, almost 21 million Americans have at least one addiction, but only 10% get treatment. I'm kind of wondering why that is, and maybe your panel of guests can enlighten us a little bit. So who do you got coming on first?
Well, we got another one from a 3-time World Series champ to a 5-time Stanley Cup winner, the best goaltender, as Wayne Gretzky has said it. This guy, Grant, his best years were in Edmonton, Buffalo, and St. Louis because he did great with all those teams and a few others. But Grant, he battled substance abuse during the height of his career. His wife, Lisa, who's an amazing woman, she also lost her son from drug abuse at the age of 33 years old a few years back. They're organizing their first golf outing in a few months. It was supposed to be last week to raise money for the Hazelden Betty Ford Foundation. And they give it back, and I think they may have some good perspectives. So, and Doc, I want to thank you again. You're my best friend for all you do.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. I love you guys. Ray, Steve, love you guys. Ray, look talking to you tomorrow, buddy.
Go Giants.
Thank you.
Go Giants, Doc. So I'm going to cue in a clip of Grant Fuhr if we have it. You know, there was a documentary that came out called Coco, the Grant Fuhr story last year. Amazing, and it tells his story.
Grant Fuhr, considered one of the best goaltenders in the world, Grant Fuhr appeared to have it all. The winner is Grant Fuhr. Stanley Cup rings, celebrity status in Edmonton, second to no one, an honored place in the Hall of Fame waiting for him. But Grant Fuhr, the invincible hockey player, was also Grant Fuhr, the troubled human being.
Fuhr has apparently confessed to years of substance abuse while being a member of the team.
Meanwhile, troubled goalie Grant Fuhr is in Toronto to meet with the NHL brass tomorrow about his recently reported drug problem.
Grant Fuhr's drug admission could mean a lifetime suspension for the Oilers netminder. The lack of a drug policy leaves the door wide open for NHL President John Ziegler.
All coincided right around that time.
Rich and Kareen were good friends. Kareen knew the reporters, so that circle is kind of how it came out.
Yeah, we tried a lot to get them to help. We tried them to, it's like typical with alcoholics and drug users. They're not doing it, right? No, you're not right. Like, I'm not doing it. One point we had him tested and those kind of things to try and help him to at least be forced to admit it. But we never got him to the point where he would admit it.
Wow.
Amazing story. And there's Grant and Lisa. Welcome, guys. I know you're on the West Coast, so thanks for smack in the middle of the day, sharing your time with us, and can't wait to the guys back in the link soon enough. But Grant, I think that clip from the documentary, what I looked at was the media backlash. And as our last guest, Doc Gooden, when the media, every time Doc had a battle, it was like the media blew it up. And even 4 years ago, when Doc was doing a charity event for me, they said, oh, he was missing and all this stuff. And it was so false, but they really blew up a lot of his issues and magnified it. How did it work with you being at the height of your career? And this comes out the media, the way they went about their uncovering this big scandal, as they called it. You handled it with like a champ, like you always have been, 5-time Stanley Cup winner. How did you have the resilience to deal with that in your own way? You came back later that next season, you resumed a Hall of Fame career, but man, that was a lot of strength you had.
Well, I don't know if I'd say I handled it like a champ. I mean, it was one of those things that had come out in the media, and sitting talking with Glenn Sather and Peter Pocklington about how to deal with it, and they just said, deal with it head on. And people are going to like you, people are going to hate you. That's just the way it is, but that was how you dealt with it.
Yeah. I mean, going back to your career, I know, obviously now, and, Lisa, maybe you want to add in too, you're so committed to the, obviously to the Hazelden Betty Ford Center and a lot of the stuff you do. Talk a little bit about what your intention is to give back and hopefully help. I have 2 members here, and we want to reach the younger population too, and make sure they're aware of a lot of these issues that can happen to anybody. And I think that's the theme of the show, is that this can happen to anybody. It doesn't matter. When I was growing up, I think the perception was that addiction was more in the underprivileged community. And it's not. It can happen to people of affluence, athletes, people at the top of the game. And a lot of folks in sports like us, we have obviously a tendency to have that high addictive personalities. And that's how. But talk a little bit about some of your perspectives with this and how you want to reach out to others going forward.
Well, for myself, I'm an alumni of the Betty Ford Center. I was there in '89, went through the program, and the team had been friends with Mr. and Mrs. Ford from the early '80s on. We came out to Palm Springs every year and got a chance to spend some time with them and learn a little bit about it. But at the time, you never really thought you'd ever need it. And '89, I made a journey through there and spent a lot of time learning about myself. More than anything is that I had to learn how to like myself. I mean, as an athlete, you love the game, you love everything around the game, but sometimes you lose yourself in that. And it gave me a great opportunity to find myself and find out what the real issue was.
Did it take you, Grant, this is Steve Vaccaro in New York, did it take you a long time to come to a realization about your addiction problem, or were you in denial at first, and how did that really hit you and your family at the beginning?
At the beginning it was tough, but at the same time I had gone through the Betty Ford Center before it ever became public. So in a sense, it was like a second slap in the face, because I thought, okay, I'd gone out privately and got the problem looked at and realized that I had an issue. So thinking that, okay, you've got through that first step, you're slowly starting recovery, you get a second slap in the face. And I found that to be probably the hardest step, is that second slap in the face, because now you're kind of in no man's land where you're starting to believe in the program, but they just yanked the rug out from underneath you. So it was a turning point for me where I learned that I could be strong within myself, if that makes sense to you.
Yes. And I know Mike, we have a couple other guests too. Can we bring in Ricky Bird also at this point? I want to bring him in. I know he's backstage, because he could offer a lot to this discussion as we unfold.
There's the Birdman.
There's the Birdman.
What's up, brother?
Ricky, thank you for joining us, Hall of Fame guitarist and a legend in the music world. But Ricky, you also had addiction issues, which you've continued to overcome, and your music helps so many people with sobriety. Talk about your journey and how you could relate to Grant at this point.
Well, it's interesting because my world of music, people must expected you to go that route. You know, it's kind of a cliche. And of course, we've lost so many people in the entertainment field from drugs and alcohol. But I've been doing. I have my new record came out like in September, on September 25th, which is my 33rd clean and sober anniversary.
Congratulations! Very good.
Thank you. And so I've been doing interviews like since September, and like at the beginning, like you start telling stories, you're telling this and that, and I kind of after a while I narrowed it down to this. I did too much, too often, and by the grace of God, I got out before it was too late. So in a nutshell, that's the deal, you know. I used from the age of 13 to 30, and from 30, my dad died of alcoholism, and his father died of alcoholism. And in turn, my dad's brothers got almost 40 years in recovery. And, when I was turning 30, I was, like I said, I did too much too often. And I was like 128 pounds. It was still a success, man. We had like big records and touring the world. But physically, emotionally, I was kind of beaten down. I was running out of dance tickets, baby. You know what I mean? A couple of near misses. Lots of different horror stories. But so from 30 from October 20th, which is my birthday, turning 30. Also Mickey's birthday. I just want to make that point. From October of '86 until September of '87 is when I really tried to stop, and that's when it got really scary because I could not stop. Like, my diary is filled with like, we're gonna go out tonight and we're just gonna have a club soda and a nice meal, and the next day it'll be like, okay, tonight we're gonna go out and have a club soda and a nice meal, and this went on like that whole time until by coincidence or by divine intervention, I was at a wedding in August of '87, and we were sitting next to a friend of ours that we used to run with a little bit, use with, and I asked her if she had anything, and she said to me, "No, she doesn't do that anymore, man. She's in recovery." She's going on and about this. That's the last thing you want to hear when you're like, when you're not ready yet. And she started talking, and she planted a seed, man. And a month later, at like 2 a.m, September 25th, I picked up the phone and I called Jill T. And the next day, she took me to my first community support group meeting, and I've been, rocking it ever since. Not to say that my life has been perfect ever since, because life is life, and I've been, broke, had money, this, that, the other. We adopted our daughter from China, in 2002. I have a 19-year-old, like all kinds of stuff. But and although I've made multiple errors of judgment in 33 years, I have not picked up a drink or a drug. And you just every day you try to do better. And the key to the whole thing to me is, and it has a lot to do with what we're going through now with the pandemic. It's accept and adapt. We suit up and we show up. So I'm doing stuff I'm in my basement now, right? Which was a finished basement before Hurricane Sandy, but that's a whole other conversation. I've been doing recovery events from down here, man. I've been doing, conversations with people that are struggling. I'm trying to get, I've been putting the word out. I was certified as a counselor. In 2018, I went to school and I got my certification counselor and recovery coach. And I only had a chance to work for like 4 months at a really wonderful place out in Staten Island called Christopher's Reason. Man, I loved it. But I'm seeing they're doing a lot of stuff over Zoom, and I'm trying to get hooked up with somebody where I could actually do this, do this like we're doing this right now and help some people that are struggling. And people ask me, what do I miss most about being in the situation we're all in right now. I've been going to treatment facilities around the country for the last bunch of years, maybe 8 years. And I do recovery music groups at treatment facilities, just me and my acoustic. I sit in front of the clients, sometimes they're all together. Sometimes I do the men's group first, and they take me over to the women's side. And I sing these songs that I wrote about addiction and recovery and hope and inspiration and change for the better. And because of the response I got from the people sitting in front of me, which you could see it in their faces, like, I know the drill, so I know what I'm writing about. And you could see the identification on the people's faces. They kept coming over to me after the groups, and they'd say, where can we get this music? So after procrastinating, which I do, I did these. I'm on my second recovery rock and roll record, and the response I get from around the world from people in recovery and from people that just like loud rock and roll is fascinating, lovely. For somebody in recovery, it's wonderful, and as a songwriter, it's brilliant to have people that identify with what you're writing about. And this seems to be what I'm here for right now, So I plan to continue this when everything gets better in this world, which it will.
Well, the CD is Sobering Times. I know, Ricky, it's a great CD. I'd love to listening to it. And you've been a recovery coach to a friend of ours, mutual friend, who introduced us. His name is Jeff Juden. He spent 10 seasons in the major leagues in the 90s. The Astros, Phillies, the Giants, the Expos, the Indians, all around the world, Brewers, Angels. But he finished up the Yankees as a world champion in 1999. And hopefully bring Jeff on as well. As an amazing guy. And Jeff's a great dad, just like you're a great dad. Here to you, Frankie. Jeff has two boys, Frederick and Dalton, really tall. Jeff's 6'8", so Jeff's into music as well. And I think, Ricky, you've been a recovery coach for him, like in every day of his. I think once a day you guys connect. And so if we can bring Jeff on with everybody, I think it'd be great to see him. There he is. There's the big fella.
Jude.
So great. The big Jude.
Checking in third. Grant, big fan. I've watched you a lot back in the day, man. Love the hockey.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, this is Ray and Steve from New York. I'm a psychologist, and Mike brought me on board here to kind of work with you guys. Talk about your journey outside the white lines there.
Yeah, my journey, the real issue for me was pretty much alcohol and struggling with injuries, drank and, took the painkillers to try to overcome the injuries and stuff and get out and stay on the field. And, it just, I'm coming up on 10 years in January.
God bless.
39 and a half, just a couple of weeks before my 40th birthday was my day. And, I just, I struggled. A lot of people would tell me, the alcohol's a problem, but like Ricky just stated, and wasn't ready. And, I was hurting pretty bad, to be perfectly honest. And so I found it hard to quit. And I got released by the Yankees, tried to make a few comebacks, but it really took, I walked into the doctor's office one day. I was dating a girl and dropped my kids off from a visitation, and he pulled right around, and I walked in the doctor's, and he took one look at me and he said, "Holy shit," and then, he had to test me. They told me I had cirrhosis at the time, and I was about almost 400 pounds, which I've lost about 100 pounds since then. And, wouldn't live to see my next birthday. So, I told him, screw you, man. I'm going to, it's a couple of weeks away. I'm not ready for that. But, it was the beginning of the end for me. I took it seriously when I left the office and, and started my recovery at that point down here in South Florida at the 101 Club, a little club there, where, I met some great people that introduced me to the program and told me to keep coming back one day at a time. And so I did. I had more than 90 meetings in 90 days. And, I've been involved with it ever since. And Ricky's been a great friend over the past few years. I met him at a recovery event in Long Island with Bobby Hartman and the Mainstream House is there. And so, just the support has been great, throughout the last 10 years. And, after 4 years of recovery, I became, my kids chose to live with me. So I've been a single dad with them being with me the last 6 years. Frederick and Dalton, and and my feet. I had real issues with my feet. It turned out to be a 25-year foot fungus where they diagnosed me with neuropathy and told me I'd never feel my feet again. I had a freak thing after 7 years, about 7.5 years, where I put some Lotrimin on my feet, and it burned my feet so bad I had second-degree burns. So my miracle, I guess they say, don't leave before the miracle happens. And, for me, I look at that as the miracle for me, where I can feel my feet again. I was able to lose the weight and to feel better and to be able to walk. So,
Great.
I've had some definite blessings and God moments, through the program. And, it really was my mother's dying wish there, which kind of at the end of my drinking was what took me, to the point where I was, it almost killed me. So, I'm grateful. And by the grace of God, I'm still here today. And I do a podcast and give the glory to God, man. I made that promise.
You have a great podcast. It's called Let's Rock Sport podcast, right, Jeff? Let's Rock. I've been on there a few times.
Yeah. Mike, you've been on there, man. I appreciate, all that you're doing. And you got me back in the loop where I was out of it for a long time. And I want to thank you, Mike, for bringing me back in and having me be a part of it with all you guys and introducing me to some great people here that have similar stories and, I can relate
It's
to.
cool for you, Jeff. I mean, we have a guy backstage named Tony LaGreca who's on your podcast, and Tony is a parent who lost his son Matt to opioid addiction in 2014. And Tony actually works at Jimmy Wolf. Supposed to be on tonight, but I think Jimmy had connection issues getting into the show. But Tony has a fantastic story as a parent, and which I think is a very good perspective. We also want to have Dawn Sweeter on as well in a few minutes. But Tony, who I met you through you, Jeff, I mean, he's been going after the pharmaceuticals who create these addictive drugs that kind of, and Tony, talk a little bit about your experience as a parent, becoming an advocate and I would say activist more against these. In the last week, the House Oversight Committee, the role of Purdue Farmer and the Sackler family, you've been out there in front of it and helping others so they don't have to experience the pain and grief that you had as a dad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tony,
Mike.
talk about Big Pharma now. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'd be
Tony's
happy
got
to. The Sackler family is the people that I dedicated my life to go after my son died. I actually went two directions. I went one direction with Jim Wahlberg, where we're making movies to educate high school kids about the dangers of opioids. That's our primary target, is dangers of opioids, because those addictions, opioids are the worst drug you could possibly take. It doesn't take 2 or 3 months to get addicted. It takes, like my son took one prescription, and after one prescription from a college football injury, he was hooked. He was hooked until he died. And it all started with Richard Sackler and his company called Purdue Pharma, which is based in Stamford, Connecticut. And right now we're going after them. And with the Oversight Committee the other day, one of the things that has been brought out, just so everybody understands, Purdue Pharma makes 90% of the drug that they make is oxycodone. And oxycodone is a long time release drug that's supposed to last. I mean, OxyContin. OxyContin is a 12-hour release drug that only lasts about 10 hours. So most times people get oxycodone as an intermediary when it wears off. But it's very highly addictive. And they basically have convinced, back in 1995, they convinced doctors and they convinced hospitals that they were underperforming by not taking care of medication, by not taking care of the pain of their patients. And they convinced so much so that I know I just found out recently that if you're on Medicare and you refuse the opioids, the hospital doesn't get as much money, which is unbelievable. And that came out in the Oversight Committee the other day. In 2007, Purdue was fined about $600 million. And up until that time, the Sacklers only took $110 million out of their company. After 2007 to 2011, they took out over $10 billion out of the company. And now, more recently, with all these lawsuits, they filed bankruptcy. But there's only $4.5 billion in assets in the company because they've got over $10 billion in offshore accounts. And the Guardian newspaper the other day just called them the most evil family on earth. And Kathy Sackler, the doctor Kathy Sackler, Richard Sackler's sister was one of the Sacklers that were interviewed in the oversight committee. And somebody asked her if there was anything that she could have done differently. She hesitated for like 20 or 30 seconds, and she said no. He said, no, really, after 470,000 deaths, you don't think you would have done anything differently? You know, and it's just pathetic when you think about how the Sacklers and the greed that they have. How many billions of dollars do you need? How many people do you have to kill before you've had enough? And that's my deal. Is I'm out there trying to educate people the dangers of opioids, and at the same time continue to go after the Sacklers to put them in their place. And we hope with the new Attorney General after January 20th, we're going to have the Sacklers go up for criminal charges. It's unreal that we have some doctors who are doing life sentences for prescribing OxyContin to patients, and yet the Sacklers, who are the ones who gave them the whole literature and all the litany of why they should be prescribing these pills, have billions of dollars to enjoy the rest of their life. It's just not fair. I mean, when you're talking about 470,000, and I just heard you say that, only 10% get recovery. That's because there's no money for it. Insurance companies don't want to pay for longer than 2 weeks.
Amen.
And you need 6 months to get cured of opioids. Because the worst thing about, if you're on drugs like an opioid, and a lot of people switch to heroin because it's basically the same thing but cheaper. But the problem is you get dope sick if you try to get off of it and you're not being treated. Dope sick is one of the worst things that can happen to a person. It's just like being on the flu times 10. It's like being on the flu with steroids. You've got to be able to have medication, and you've got to be detoxified, and it takes a long time to do it. And that's why people don't do it. And eventually you take more and more and you end up dead, because what happens is the part of your brain that creates you to automatically breathe and have your heartbeat goes to sleep. My son died in his sleep because his brain went to sleep. He planned on going fishing the next day, but it didn't happen because he had a buildup of methadone in his body. And that was supposed to be the drug that was going to get him off, but that was an opioid, and that's just the way it works.
Yeah, Tony, I want to introduce you to somebody who just popped on a screen. She's a wonderful woman that I've had the pleasure of working out at the 45 Fitness through. Actually, Mark Wahlberg is connected to all that, so that's the common connection between us. And Dawn is a former employee of the U.S. Bureau of Prisons, and her husband Jim is a retired federal agent. They lost their daughter Gabrielle to opioid heroin overdose 5 years ago. And so I want to just introduce, because I think as parents, and I know Lisa, you're still on too, I think that common thread you have as parents of going through it really provides another perspective. And it's heartbreaking and dealing with it, obviously dealing with the grief, but also now turning that into channeling into something positive, and adversity and resilience, as I call it, really it's really powerful. So Dawn represents the most positive person that I have ever met, and works out every day at F45, and just really is out to be, again, she's a helper. And just wanted to introduce her to the show. And Dawn, do you want to talk a little bit about your Gabby and kind of what you have seen? Obviously the mental health aspect of Gabby's illness made it a lot more difficult as a parent dealing with her self-destructive behaviors. So I know that that's something that definitely was challenging as a parent. But talk a little bit about your issues and you as a parent and what you're doing now to help others.
Thank you guys so much, Mike, for having me. And I'm in awe of all the people that I'm here with. Gabrielle spent most of her life having issues with mental illness, and really couldn't figure out what the issue was, and went to so many counselors, so many therapists, and when we found the perfect pediatric neurologist, knew exactly what she was going through, put her on the exact combination of what she needed, and she was on it for about a week, and I had my daughter back. And but what she told me was, I can't take these meds because they make my brain fog. And so this brilliant kid who probably could have become the president of the United States succumbed to fighting every day, trying to figure out all the things that were going on in her brain. And initially went to pills, which like the oxycodone, which she would get off the street. And when that became too expensive, she then went to heroin. I can't tell you the number of rehabs and detoxes that we took her to. And because we had such excellent insurance, they had no problems taking her in because they would just suck that money out of the insurance company from each rehab that she went to. And she had contracted hepatitis C through needle usage. And we decided to bring her home for treatment for that. And within 8 months, she was gone. And we had expected that she had died from a heroin overdose, but she died in her bed, like Tony's son, basically through Xanax and hydrocodone. And she just went to bed that night and never woke up. So my issue is I don't know if she planned that to happen because she was so smart about drugs and how they work. And I won't know until I see her again as to, was it an accident or whether she just couldn't take it anymore. And you want so badly for them to be here, but knowing how she lived her hell on earth, I'm happy for her that she no longer has to deal with that day-to-day fight that's in her brain.
Well, you're a great parent, Dawn, and I've seen that. And you obviously have another daughter as well. And I think obviously you had that burden of guilt. And I think as parents and trying to teach our children the dangers of this stuff, that's what I'm on a mission to do and make sure provide awareness for. And, it's great that Tony and Jimmy Wahlberg came out with a great film. I think they have a clip of the trailer of it. It's called What About the Kids? And I think this is really an amazing, a must watch for any parent to see. And it blew me away, just like it did when I saw Grant Fuhr's amazing documentary the other night as well. So if we can play that trailer, I think that'd be great for everybody to see.
Call. Hey.
Call 911.
Dear God, I don't have any favors to ask of you. I just wanted to thank you. Thank you for giving me people who really love me as much as I love them. My mom never cooked for me much. She was always sick. Now that she's gone, I know why. Not that anyone has told me. Everyone thinks I'm too young to understand, but I do understand. My mommy was a drug addict, and I also know that a lot of people think drug addicts are bad people. Even though bad things have happened, and Mommy is up in heaven with you. Hi, Mommy. And Daddy is getting better in the halfway better house.
And if you're looking for a miracle, open your eyes, bro. Your daughter's a miracle.
Don't you want me to find us a new place?
I do more than anything, but I want it to last. Thank you for giving me people who really love me as much as I love them. I still have my Nana and Papa, who, by the way, huge fan of yours. She's the one who told me all about you and your son, Jesus.
But Father, please, please, please help that little girl.
We need to lift those suffering with addiction up.
I promise that I will get better.
Anyway, I just wanted to say hello to you and let you know that you'll be hearing from me from now on. Thank you, God.
You rest in my arms.
Great job. And Tony has a cameo in it as well, I think, right, Tony? But it was just a plug, Jimmy could be on. Yeah.
I want to mention something today about that. First of all, today I was with my great grandson because his mother's in rehab, and I'm 73 and I went out sledding with a 3-year-old today. I can tell you I'm white, but it's amazing how it turned out to be real for me. But one of the big things we didn't talk about was stigma. This disease, this addiction, There's a lot of stigma that comes with it. People associate people on drugs as being weak, they don't know any better, and so forth. And people forget that 85% of all opioid addictions start with a prescription. My son's drug dealer wore a lab coat. That's what people got to understand, and that's the message we have to get out there. We need to make sure people know when they fill a prescription, what are they filling it for? Because the pharmaceutical company and a lot of the politicians that get the money from them are just bad people, because they'll do anything for the buck. And it's basically capitalism gone haywire, you know, and that's what we got to get that message out.
Yeah, Tony, I admire your efforts, because we all have to know about Big Pharma and what's behind this money-making stuff that's going on, and it's killing our youth. And I think Dawn said something and really hit home. As a psychologist, I deal with substance abuse and duly diagnosed. And about 20% of Americans who have depression or anxiety also have addiction. So I think the work that continues to be made is that people coming out like this tonight, celebrity status people, or people that have a platform to share their stories candidly to help others head on. So Michael, I compliment you for bringing everybody together here like this. And I think we need to do another show with exact same people here, because we have to follow up.
So much to say.
And there's so much to say. But Michael, we have 1 minute left. How are you going to tie things up? Thank you so very much.
I also want to plug the one person who couldn't make it tonight, Jim Wahlberg, who's done so much with the Mark Wahlberg Youth Foundation. He's got a book that came out called The Big Hustle, details his addiction struggles. And Jimmy had his first drink at age 8 in Dorchester, Massachusetts, 14-year spiral into substance abuse, death, and homelessness, and details. It's some great stuff. And he's got his Bottom Line podcast. He talks a lot about addiction. And this film that he did with Tony is incredible. And I want to plug Ricky and all the work he's done, his recovery rehab. And I think it's amazing. I think, and what Grant and Lisa are doing with their, obviously, fundraising efforts for the Betty Ford, the Hazelton Center Foundation, it's incredible. So, and Jeff is amazing story of resilience as well. So I think everybody on here has a great story. So the Big Jude as well, there he is. And it's just great. So I just want to thank everybody for being on. If there's any closing comments from any of our guests, just to wrap this up. But I think all of you were incredible fighters.
Can I step in? Can I say something?
Sure. Go ahead.
When I saw Tony's T-shirt, that shirt, like I've been around in recovery a long time, right? But most of my work has been in the boundaries of 12-step. I have some people I work with, I help, and then I got a guy that I call. I had a rock and roll all-star. Yeah, that's right. I had a rock and roll all-star band somewhere around 2014, and we did a show. Fed Up got us down to Washington, and we did a show in facing the Washington Monument. It was a beautiful September day. Maybe Tony was even there, but so it was Fed Up.
I was there, and I spoke that day.
Yeah. So I got there the day before, and I came down in a hotel, and I came down to go to sound check, and the elevator doors open, right, and there must have been 250 people wearing those Fed Up T-shirts in the lobby, with people on their shirts that they'd lost sons, daughters, uncles, aunts, mothers, fathers, etc. And they all, one by one, they would come over to me and they'd tell me their story. And let me tell you, bro, that was the moment where I said, I got to do more, and that's when I started to do these. Treatment facility trips to play music to the clients in treatment. And everybody's got a place in this. There's a whole bunch of sides. Like Tony obviously is good with dealing with Big Pharma and stuff. I would not be good at that because I'd be in prison. But everybody's got a thing. You play to your strengths. My strength is music, and I managed to combine rock and roll with the message recovery. I don't know what the answer is, but I do it one person at a time. If somebody reaches out to me, they want to know where the light is, I try to get to where the light is. And let me just say something about Jude over here. I got people that I've worked with as sponsees. We're not official, we're friends, but we talk about that recovery. But this guy, like sponsees in 12-step groups, they call for a while, then you don't hear from them, and then that's the nature of it. Every day, this guy to me and says, "Where's the action, bro? How you doing, bro? God is good, bro." I mean, he means it, you know.
Well, you're all helpers. I mean, everybody on the show is a helper in a different way, and I think that's what bonds us as we wrap up. And I want to thank everybody again for being part of this last episode of the year for us. But I think we really had to do a follow-up episode, is what I think, because I mean, there's so much more to cover. But all of you for being on tonight, thank you with my dear heart here and my girls for being part of this and spreading the message. I think it's an incredible message that we have more to talk about.
Michael, what about thekidsfilm.com, and anybody can watch it for free?
Yep, I'm going to put a link on it as well. So we'll put a link to it.
Yeah.
Yes, we will definitely put a link there. So, all right, Steve.
We got to run because it's important to get this show on cable, and we got time constraints. So, Michael, well done. Bravo, my man.
See you later.
Thanks,
God
everybody.
bless.
We can and do recover, baby.
Yeah,
All right.
God bless.
Gotta lock it. See you
All right.
later.